Good evening. I'm Leo Flor, and I have the privilege of being the director of King County's Department of Community and Human Services. On behalf of the department and the entire King County team, welcome to the annual King County Behavioral Health Legislative Forum. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you to our legislators, to Executive Constantine, to King County Council members and other elected officials, managed care organizations and our network partners and agencies, special guests and community members. And thank you most especially to our recovery speakers who are sharing their stories tonight, and to all of you here tonight who are walking the path of recovery. You are the reason for this event, and I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we'll come together and show those living with behavioral health conditions that you are not alone. Mental health and substance use challenges are growing in King County and around the world for that matter, because of the ongoing stress and trauma of the pandemic, which has exacerbated existing disparities and makes our shared work to build a better behavioral health system increasingly urgent. Tonight, we'll hear about those challenges. But tonight is also about building solutions, and it's about hope. Yes, we have challenges to face. Primarily, we must invest more in and better support our essential behavioral healthcare workers. And we must enhance our crisis response system, which is itself at a breaking point. We will face these challenges together. And there's a truth that folks in recovery must know, and know better than most, that things can and do get better if we take action. I'm looking forward to continuing this work together with legislators, local leaders, and the recovery community to use this time of crisis to build the stronger, more resilient behavioral health system that our community needs and deserves. While I wish that we could all be here in person for this celebration of our community's commitment to recovery and advocacy for more mental health and substance use disorder, I am looking forward to when we can finally meet again in person and host this event so that we can shake hands and say hello, not across screens. But we do have an exciting agenda for you here tonight. This evening, you'll hear from County Executive Dow Constantine, from Kelli Nomura, our Behavioral Health Division Director, who will share with you King County's behavioral health legislative priorities for 2022, from 4 individuals who will share their incredible journeys of recovery with us, from Byun, the Executive Director at Asian Counseling and Referral Services, who will speak to the accomplishments as well as the challenges that our King County Integrated Care Network, or KCICN, are experiencing. And you'll hear comments and perspectives from our elected officials who are here with us tonight. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce King County Executive Dow Constantine, whose leadership continues to be instrumental as King County moves towards our goal of ensuring that pathways to recovery are available to everyone in our community. Thank you to each of you for being here tonight.
Good evening. For more than 20 years, King County treatment providers, board members, consumers and family members, and our state legislators have gathered to listen and to learn from each other about the challenges, the needs, and the priorities for our regional behavioral health system. This has been an unprecedented 2 years for the world and for us here in King County. We continue to fight the COVID pandemic and to support those in our communities hit hardest by its impacts. With support from our state and federal partners, King County has provided isolation and quarantine facilities to help more than 3,200 people recover from COVID who were not able to safely isolate in their own homes or who did not have a home. Thanks to our strong local network, behavioral health care services have been available at every location. COVID has challenged all of our health and human services programs and systems. I want to thank our incredible network of behavioral health care providers for their response to consumers and the community throughout this unprecedented crisis. With support from our state legislators, we've opened the first of our Health Through Housing hotels, moving 100 people out of homelessness. They're only the first of some 1,600 people experiencing chronic homelessness who will receive not just safe housing, but on-site services they need 24/7 to reclaim their health and enter into recovery in 2021 and 2022. For over 30 years, King County government has coordinated publicly funded mental health and substance use services for our region. We're committed to finding ways to improve access to treatment and to ensure the best quality of care for our residents. To achieve our true north, that every person in King County will have the opportunity to thrive, to achieve their highest potential, we must ensure the doors to treatment and recovery are open for everyone. We're working to fund programs and services to connect people to behavioral health treatment, primary care, homelessness and housing assistance, employment, and connections to community. Our vision is an integrated healthcare system where people can get the treatment they need when and where they need it. To do that takes partnerships, collaboration, and funding. The last few years, our legislature has made many needed advances and increased funding to support behavioral health treatment, and I want to thank them. But I know you agree with me that we are not there yet. First, it is time to enhance our community-based response to people in behavioral health crisis. As we move to implement the new 988 crisis line, we must be ready to help those who call for help. We need mobile outreach to meet people where they are, including new partnerships with law enforcement. More next-day appointments so that when they reach out to us, we have the help available. More peer counselors and clinicians, and more crisis stabilization units. And we must be able to pay wages for the people in our community who do this incredibly important work. We cannot hope to expand our behavioral health crisis response system and improve access to treatment if we fail to adequately invest in our behavioral health workforce. An increase in our Medicaid behavioral health rates will help us to close the gap. We have held the first conversations about the needs of our behavioral health care system, and I believe we can continue to work together to achieve a response that leaves no one behind. You'll hear more tonight about our legislative priorities, and you'll hear the voices of recovery. They are the reason this work is so important. With the right supports, anyone is capable of recovery, and everyone deserves that opportunity. I look forward to joining you in the months ahead as we support all of our neighbors and friends on the path to recovery. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Robertson, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you my journey and how I got here. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and that means I haven't used drugs and alcohol in 6 years. I've lived through active addiction and stigma in the height of the war on drugs and came out the other side against steep odds. Growing up in the East Renton, Issaquah area, I used alcohol in my youth to fit in. It became a way for me to eliminate feeling different. There were 3 things in my life that would reduce feelings of inadequacy: music, sports, and drinking. Drinking drowned out the constant racial jokes and epithets. Although others began to see my lack of control in my adolescence, it was undetectable to me and my parents. My drinking led to earning a reputation as a fighter and a thief, and a sense of respect bred by fear. By the time I was 17, I was drinking every chance I could get. My denial kept me from realizing I was using substances to max abandonment, sexual abuse, and cultural identity. I even experienced suicidal ideation. Most of that stemmed from my being adopted by a white family and not having any way to begin self-discovery, develop autonomy, or have my esteem sanctioned by my cultural peers. The bottom line is, for as long as I can remember, I never felt wanted, included, valued, or part of the community. My youth propelled me into a destructive way of life. I became physically, emotionally, and spiritually bankrupt. I stopped communicating with my friends, family, and church community. I abandoned my career as a dental assistant, and I couldn't maintain a job and generate an income to support my using. I began to engage in crime to pay for my burgeoning cocaine habit. I also developed an insatiable need for isolation because of the shame and constant failure in pursuit of perfection. I thought there was something inherently wrong with me morally. When I couldn't stop using, I was sent to prison. And then when the confinement was lifted, I would use again. The cycle of use, arrest, confinement, failed attempts at abstinence, and even worse use continued for over 25 years. This cycle was bolstered by housing insecurity and criminalization of my disease. I was regarded as a person, although homeless and chronically using, I was trying to be a drug kingpin. He could stop if he wanted to. People who smoke crack need to go to prison. Not only was I in this cycle of addiction, I was a member in a society that refused to identify it as a disorder to be treated. I was continually told by so many that if I stopped victimizing the public by my behavior, my use would stop. I sought out solutions like inpatient treatment, the Adolescent program, and 12-step meetings. I couldn't find the perfect formula to control my use of cocaine and alcohol. No matter how much or how little I used, nothing could keep me from using, going to prison, losing my housing. I didn't know that my recovery would be an inside job and take a committed decision. No one told me I had an actual disorder. I was told it would take a program of behavioral modification inside of confinement. I was told I was in fact a criminal who used cocaine and alcohol. I was never told I was a person with a disorder, chronically preoccupied with cocaine and alcohol use, and criminal behavior followed because of my obsession to obtain it. It wasn't until the present opioid epidemic caught momentum and I was arrested the last time it changed my life. So when I was offered a chance to enter drug court in lieu of confinement and engage in treatment, I took it. I noticed this time it was different. Treatment didn't talk about stopping my criminal behavior. They did ask me about my trauma for the first time and provided a process to work out the root of my pain and my need to use drugs and alcohol to attempt to repair past and present damage in my life. I even noticed they used different terminology for so much of the treatment process. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was begging for a chance at changing my life because I was suffering from a disorder. Treatment came first, not confinement. I was able to find approaches tailored to the disorder that fit me. Suddenly, there was a lot less stigma, and I didn't feel like I was singled out by clinicians, society, or the judicial system. I was finally able to fully grab the opportunity for a new life. Today, I am one of the lucky ones. I've not used since 2016 and have built and maintained a solid foundation of recovery. I am currently a certified peer counselor with Peer Washington and work as a peer services specialist in the same King County drug diversion court I proudly graduated from. I am avidly involved in recovery advocacy for those suffering from SUD and/or mental health challenges and work to create behavioral health policy change throughout Washington state. I want to be a person who is at the forefront of normalizing recovery for persons who are marginalized with their mortality in the balance. I'll close with this. The reality is many persons whom I have never met had to overdose and die for me to have a chance at real recovery. From a disorder that had my name on it, and with many more who aren't with us today, their sacrifice removed much, but not all the criminality and stigma from what was venomously called addiction and seen solely as criminal activity. Those lost created space for my healing. I'm only here speaking to you today through the grace of my spirituality, self-discovery, community, and changes in an archaic system. I was given an opportunity to participate in drug court and work on myself with the help of many people in the drug court staff, treatment services, and being of service in the 12-step community. Please remember, the community is the most critical part of the healing environment because it produces trust, empathy, accountability, commitment, and tolerance of not only the lived experience, but the unlived experience as well. Thank you for being part of my recovery.
Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your important story with us tonight. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelli Namura, the Director of the Behavioral Health and Recovery Division at King County. Because of the pandemic, King County was not able to hold a legislative forum in 2020, the first one we've missed in 24 years. I have missed this event, and I'm very excited to be with you tonight. Since our last forum together, the need for behavioral health services has increased dramatically. The COVID-19 pandemic is having a profound effect on mental health and substance use, with increasing numbers of people experiencing depression, anxiety, and loneliness. We know that more than 1 in 10 people report starting or increasing alcohol or drug use to cope with the pandemic. And an alarming number of people are dying by suicide or overdose in our region. And while our behavioral health providers have worked tirelessly through this pandemic to keep up with the growing need and demand, they've experienced their own stressors and challenges wrought by this pandemic. We've seen an exodus of clinicians, labor shortages, rising supply costs, and an array of new and sometimes costly requirements to comply with. I joined King County over 5 years ago, following 30 years as part of the Behavioral Health Provider Network, and I have never seen our behavioral health system under such tremendous stress. It is clearly near the breaking point. So it's up to all of us to work together to rise to this occasion. I greatly appreciate the legislature's commitment to expanding behavioral health services over the last few years, and we must build on that progress to stabilize the current system and create the recovery-oriented whole person care that King County residents deserve and need. Throughout these challenging times, the King County Integrated Care Network, or KCICN, has helped providers face the challenges and pivot to meet the needs of the times. The collaborative approach of the KCICN is designed to drive quality outcomes for clients and remain flexible enough to respond to new challenges with modern approaches. As we look ahead, we can build on this strong foundation of small and large providers, provide culturally competent, person-centered care, address gaps in services, and build a nimble and community-based crisis response system that reaches every corner of our county. King County is pleased to contribute significantly to the behavioral health system through the Mid-Behavioral Health Tax Fund, thanks to a 0.1% sales tax approved by the King County Council. We use this local funding to strengthen our King County services and fill in funding gaps otherwise not met by other funding sources. King County stands ready to partner with the legislature to meet today's needs through 2 primary strategies: securing the workforce and enhancing the crisis services our communities need. First, the state must develop and sustain our essential behavioral health workforce. We are in the midst of a critical workforce shortage. Simply put, workers are not paid well enough. Talented and experienced people are burning out and leaving the industry for better pay and easier work. A minimum 7% increase in Medicaid behavioral health rates across all service types will help bring compensation closer in line with the value that our behavioral health workers provide and closer to the wages they need. We support improved recruitment and retention strategies for credentialed and non-credentialed behavioral health workers, including streamlining administrative requirements for the behavioral health workforce, such as those recommended by the Workforce Training and Education Board's Behavioral Health Group. Matching King County's $2.5 million investment in workforce retention and recruitment, and investing in our peers. There are over 1,000 peers currently on the peer certification training waitlist. We must open up enough trainings so they can enter the workforce. In King County, we are excited. The state is considering the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic model that could help behavioral health providers receive enhanced payments and recognize their role as safety net providers. Second, the state must enhance the community-based response to people experiencing behavioral health crises. We need a response system that responds to crises in a way, place, and time people need, just like our community's other emergency response systems. We need transformative new investments and enhancements to secure many more peers, clinicians, and navigators embedded in the community, meeting people where they are, and providing mobile support countywide. The robust system that we envision can ensure individuals in crises connect to services they need when they call the new 988 crisis line. Investments in 3 specific crisis intervention areas are needed. First, $8.6 million in non-Medicaid funding is needed to provide comprehensive mobile crisis response with rapid deployment capability throughout King County. This investment would double the capacity of our existing youth and adult crisis response teams. Second, we must expand next day appointments for mental health and substance use. Today in King County, 2,600 next day appointments are available per year for people with mental health needs, but we estimate needing 3,500 more mental health and substance use appointments to meet the current need. And third, we appreciate the legislature's capital funding earlier this year for 2 new crisis stabilization facilities in our region as part of the True Blood settlement. However, additional operating funds are needed to bring these 2 facilities online and up to capacity. And we need more capital investments in the full spectrum of behavioral health facilities statewide, from outpatient to residential to walk-in facilities that can prevent crises from happening for individuals with intensive and acute needs. Now, I realize I just went over a long wish list, especially as we approach a short session and a supplemental budget year. Having talked with many legislators over the past few weeks, I know you recognize how desperately our community needs your support. I have never been more hopeful that we can achieve the county and state's shared vision for a workforce truly valued for the service they provide and a crisis continuum of services that meet all levels of need in our community. Thank you so much again for being here tonight. It is a wonderful reminder of why we all do this hard work. Everyone in our community is deserving and with the right supports, capable of recovery. Now we will move on to the highlight of the evening, where you will hear incredible personal stories of recovery from members of our community whose lives have been touched by mental health and substance use challenges. I'd also like to thank the members of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board and others who assisted in the selection of our featured speakers tonight. Following these speakers, you will hear remarks from a KCICN provider representative. Thank you.
First, please ask yourself this question. How do you go from having a master's degree in architecture to bussing tables and cleaning toilets at Panera, and then struggle your way back physically and emotionally to feel self-worth again? I have done this, and it's probably the greatest challenge and accomplishment of my life. Hello, my name is Kimberly, and I'm surviving 35 years of mental illness. This includes a traumatic brain injury and a near fatal suicide attempt upon which I began ECT, electroconvulsive shock therapy. Although an effective form of treatment, I subsequently sustained permanent memory loss. Life as an intern architect ended in disability 15 years ago, when I could no longer practice my lifelong dream. This was devastating. And for several years following, I simply gave up on my future. ECT caused memory loss, which affected my education, work, and life experiences. In isolation, I became very depressed and distant from my family and friends. Shortly after my last psychiatric hospitalization in 2007, a friend told me about Bellevue Clubhouse, a program of Hero House Northwest. It is a nonprofit psychiatric rehabilitation program for adults 18 years and older that values hope, empowerment, relationships, and opportunity. I joined. It is peer-driven, where members and staff support the work order day needs, including cleaning and preparing meals. It is an organization in which people with lived experience support the clubhouse. At first, I was still struggling with accepting the fact that I was mentally ill, and showing this in the presence of others made me feel vulnerable. With time, I began to share with other members and staff. I too was challenged. Before Clubhouse, I believed my life was without any goals and that I had lost any compassion for myself. My peers at Clubhouse provided me with a safe and accepting place. In 2015, with their support and with medication and psychotherapy, I was able to end electroconvulsive shock therapy. In time, I began to participate in the Clubhouse supported employment program. With the assistance of my employment specialist, I started working part-time at Panera. I began to regain confidence in myself that I had not seen for over a decade. I was engaging people outside my home in a working and social environment. With the help of Clubhouse, an opportunity became available to return to the architectural field part-time. Clubhouse helped me design an employment contract that required me to complete a computer graphics class to maintain employment. I never ever dreamed of re-entering the field again after so many years of seeing myself as a broken person. My employment specialist helped me with the process of securing a scholarship for my class at Bellevue College. However, I had great reservation enrolling, having profound memory deficits. Yet, I successfully completed the course and worked as an architectural assistant until the hours became unavailable. I stayed committed to my employment goals as Clubhouse has helped me regain employment at Panera. Even though my job was halted by COVID-19, I continue to look for work that matches my capacity and experience. I am enthusiastic and I know I can do this. As Clubhouse has taught me, it can be done. I continue to participate in Clubhouse socials, which includes trips to Healing Horses and to the Seattle Aquarium. While engaging with other members who have similar challenges, I feel comfortable and accepted. It is a place where I have regained self-confidence, education, and employment. Clubhouse has become part of my family, and I am a part of theirs. My capacities may be limited, but not unacknowledged. Since I joined Clubhouse, I have survived 14 years without psychiatric hospitalization and have written a book with my own art and prose. I never dreamed this was possible. Clubhouse continues to encourage me and others to reach for attainable goals and plan for long-term possibilities. As a member, you are a member at any Clubhouse for life. If you or someone you know has a mental health issue and are looking for hope, empowerment, relationships, and opportunities, I encourage you to advocate for clubhouses in your community. There's no cost to join, and they are open daily with after-hour socials. My hope is that we continue to fund and expand access to psychiatric rehabilitation programs like Cure House Northwest and its Clubhouse recovery programs, so more people like me will find hope, recovery, and achieve new life goals. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the 2021 King County Behavioral Health Legislative Forum. The extended nature of this pandemic has deeply impacted individuals in our community who are confronting behavioral health and substance use challenges. The situation has also brought into clear view how important behavioral health is to our overall well-being and how quickly we'll recover from this pandemic. Across our community, we are seeing more people sharing openly their own personal stories to help destigmatize mental health, and providers rising to the occasion, striving to respond to people's needs. While persistence and resilience are being demonstrated by people each and every day, the pandemic has created conditions that have strained our community behavioral health system. We have seen unprecedented demand for behavioral health and substance use treatment services all across our community. With the dramatic rise in the cost of living, we also see a behavioral health system with limited resources to fully support our workforce in the way that our workforce deserves, making recruitment, retention major challenges. The murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and countless other Black people by law enforcement resulted in a racial reckoning. It's brought about long overdue work to address structures and systems that are racist, and at the same time, an urgent need for our policymakers to provide guidance and support when there is a behavioral health event requiring frontline people to intervene instead of law enforcement. As a system, we are doing our best to respond to these external forces around us. It also begs the question of how can we be better prepared and proactive for the future? What are the conditions and resources necessary to ensure that we have a robust behavioral health system? At ACRS, we cherish our bilingual, bicultural case managers, as well as other frontline staff who bring rich skills and background to serve our community. Finding people who possess these traits is extremely difficult. Due to the workforce shortage, one avenue we must take is to look abroad to attract international talent, which means additional legal and other employment hiring costs that could instead go towards direct care to the community. Regardless of what we as a system can do, Resources to attract more qualified behavioral health professionals to our community-based system through multiple strategies will be key to addressing the workforce shortage issue. What ACRS faces as a linguistically and culturally relevant services provider parallels the challenges confronted by our rural area providers and others who serve special populations. This includes providers who utilize effective and trusted non-traditional treatment approaches, like in our Pacific Islander and Native communities, where healers complement the Western care offered to their clients. We also have an important opportunity through policy change, for example, to broaden our workforce to make more space for frontline workers who are non-credentialed. For ACRS, this means more people in our community with language and cultural skills are not deterred from pursuing a profession in the behavioral health field. There are many highly qualified and committed individuals, and we shouldn't close the door of opportunity for them to support and grow the system to keep up with the demand. This time is for all of us to help shape the conversation to address the workforce gap, pandemic recovery, and others. Our King County Integrated Care Network is one of its kind model of joint venture between providers in the system and the county to work closely to advance the well-being of our community. KCICN is an important means for us to impact health outcomes at the population level. Since its inception, the behavioral health system continues to learn, evolve, and improve to ensure that the residents of King County achieve optimal health. I and many others here in King County look forward to partnering with our state and legislative leaders to make real investments to stabilize and grow our behavioral health system. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ubah. I was born in Somalia and I lived in Kenya until I was 7, mostly in refugee camps near Nairobi. My father was killed by rebels during the civil war of Somalia. In 2013, my mother died from suicide. My uncle brought my sister and I to America in 1998. There were 6 of us living in one room, but that wasn't a bad thing because I felt safe and I wasn't hungry. I had good experiences with teachers at High Point Tutoring Center. I consider them beautiful souls with different pigmentation who saved me from gangs and suicide. But even they couldn't undo the trauma of growing up in a war zone. I started running away at 14. I got pregnant at 16, and I gave up custody of my son to his father's family because I couldn't raise him by myself. I started drinking and smoking pot and going to nightclubs when I was 18. Later, I would abuse many substances and become an addict. I was never introduced to healthy living, so I didn't know any better. I didn't see my life damaged, but stereotypes and words could break me. I didn't know such things as mental health or drug treatment existed. I woke up restrained and fighting at Fairfax Behavioral Health. But the staff there talked to me like I was human and decent. I got medicine that did more than just help. It silenced the voice in my head. For the first time, I was able to speak my own truth. Staff taught me I needed skills and medicine, but when I started learning those skills, I got discharged. They opened a window for me, but I was like a penguin that couldn't fly, not a bird. Then I was in and out of jail, where police and first responders put labels on me and treated me with disrespect. I lived in the homeless encampment known as the jungle, and I learned the humiliation of addiction. When I found out I was pregnant, I was dope sick, homeless, and so ashamed I wanted to die. I was going to get an abortion, but they needed an ultrasound. So I saw my baby with her hands together like she was praying. With that picture in my head, I kept my baby. And I got sober at Swedish Ballard addiction program for pregnant women. That felt like the start of something new and powerful for me. I learned healthy skills with other Somali women and found out I was not the only one struggling with mental illness and trauma. I got connected to every program I could find. Muslim Housing Services, WIC program, Wellsprings, Westside Babies, Valley Cities Behavioral Health, AA, and NA. I was finally learning skills in a way that made sense to me. Then the pandemic hit. My support stopped. I remember getting down to 2 pills, and those were gone. I got agitated, hostile, and combative. I stayed clean, but I had a complete mental breakdown. I lost my housing and they took my baby for 3 weeks because I couldn't manage the voices in my head without medication. I stayed with my family until I could get back on meds, and slowly I pulled my life back together. During the pandemic, I feel like the system set us up to fail. If we couldn't afford smartphones and internet to get virtual services, we couldn't get the support we needed. An amazing lawyer came out of nowhere to help me with CPS, immigration, and benefits. But very few people had time for me during the pandemic. But I was determined. I did random drug testing. I got my housing and my baby back. I completed intensive outpatient and I got my 1 year sobriety coin. The Department of Children, Family, and Youth Services, who handled my CPS case, were so amazed by me, by what I did. They offered me a job working for them. I invited the woman who believed in me so much to hire me, and she's watching tonight. Now I have my housing, I have my baby girl, and both of my children are in my life. I feel healthy, I feel whole, and I feel worthy of respect. I have a great job that I love. Through all of this, I've learned to live by the principles of what you seek is seeking you. This is about listening to your intuition, pursuing your dreams, creating your ideal reality, and knowing that things that call you are calling you for a reason. They are part of your purposeful path in this lifetime. Thank you for listening to my story. And thank you for your continued support of services and programs that can make a difference between living and thriving or dying in shame on the street. Habeen Wanaksin, good night.
Hi, my name is Jared, and I'm here to share some of my story. This is a condensed version of my life story from when I was a juvenile all the way up until adulthood. So my life as a child started out troubled. I was physically and sexually abused by my father in my early childhood, causing me to have extreme anger and hatred for the world in general. I acted out this anger against anyone or anything, including my family. At the age of 12, I ended up in trouble with the law for an arson charge that caused damage to 2 houses. This trouble led up to being placed in numerous placements like group homes and juvenile facilities until the age of 15. My case got closed at 15 and I was free to run wild. Not much later, I was in a stolen car running from the police and had a fatal accident. The driver of the other car died. I almost died. I have 2 plates in my head and facial reconstruction. This accident sent me to prison for a 10-year stay. I joined a gang and thought I was somebody. I kept those ties tight even out of prison. I got out and still had this anger and hate inside. I lost all my family when I was incarcerated, I just have my brother and my sister behind me. It was hard to get out and not have gotten to see my mother or anyone else before they passed. I'm a mama's boy, but true to form, my sister and brother were there to welcome me home. I went right to work and tried to just jump into normal life, still doing drugs. I was out for 76 days. I got an assault with a deadly weapon charge. I went to prison with a 10-year sentence for the second time and got out about 6.5 to 7 years ago. I got out of prison not understanding the outside world yet. My drug problem started when I was 11 years old and progressed from just smoking marijuana and drinking to shooting meth and heroin. I went on using drugs and finally wound up overdosing on heroin in a bathroom. They were able to revive me and I quit doing heroin. My overdose wasn't enough to keep me out of trouble. Without heroin, I still shot meth and cocaine. I was going to die badly. During this time, my mental health wasn't being addressed and was spiraling out of control. I was supposed to be on meds I didn't have or just didn't take. My meth use was out of control. Due to my drug use and life circumstance, I was habitually homeless. I got in trouble numerous times and felt trapped at home. So I left the drug dealing and stealing there once and for all. I started my trek across the US of A all the time off my meds and doing drugs, and decided to go to Seattle. I lived on the streets here also. So the streets of Seattle, I shot meth and got into trouble under life circumstances. I made it to the point I was admitted to Western State Hospital after numerous trips to other mental health facilities. I was hearing voices and thought everyone was against me. I spent 7 or 8 months in Western State. When I got out of Western State and was accepted into the PAC program through Navos, I moved into apartments with a roommate and wound up in the dope again. I almost died twice. Once from a blood infection and shutting down my kidneys on dialysis. I was able to be hospitalized with frostbite that took part of my fingers. I tried 9 times to get clean through rehab. Now I finally won the fight. And NA and the PAC team have kept me clean for 9 months. I'm finally on the right track. The PAC program has helped me to no end. This group of people are extraordinary. They came and saw me in the hospital. They have counseled me and never gave up on me. I severely need this team to continue to support and help me hit 1 year clean. I'm at 9 months because of God, NA, and the PAC team. My mental health is at a manageable point, and I was able to work with the PAC team members and counselors. That's my story. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.
All right, why don't we go ahead and get started. Again, thank you all for being with us tonight. I'm Kelly from the Behavioral Health and Recovery Division. And I also hope that you were here earlier to hear the wonderful, wonderful recovery stories. I want to thank Michael, Ubah, Kimberly, and Jared for sharing their stories, for being part of our evening tonight, and just really reinforcing the importance and value of the behavioral health services that we are providing across King County, and the importance of our legislative priorities tonight to support all of those individuals in King County needing and accessing services. So thank you to our speakers. So now we would like to hear from our legislators. Thank you again for being here, and we welcome your comments. We're particularly interested in hearing your thoughts about what you heard tonight during our program, or if you have comments on priorities around mental health and substance use recovery for 2022. I will be calling on you by district, so you'll be able to join once your district is called. Please introduce yourself and take about 1 minute. I know that's not a lot of time, but about 1 minute or so for your comments. And we'll go through the different districts and then wrap up our evening tonight. So again, thank you for being here. Let's start with legislators from District 1. Do we have any legislators from the first district who would like to introduce yourselves and make some brief comments?
Hello, I'm Representative Lisa Callan, and I'm so appreciative of being here and so thankful for the speakers tonight, sharing your stories that are just exemplary of how the system is showing up for you and how it has failed you and how it has provided supports and all the work that we have yet to do. So huge thanks for that. I serve on the state's Children and Youth Behavioral Health Work Group, and I know we're just got a minute, so I'm just going to tell you that there's significant alignment between the recommendations that came from the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Work Group and King County's legislative agenda on behavioral health. So thank you for that work, and I look forward to our continued partnership to see how much we could actually get accomplished in the supplemental year. I'm very excited about the potential and happy to partner in this work with you.
All right, let's move to District 30.
Well, I was going to let my esteemed colleague, Rep. Taylor, go first.
Well, I was going to do the same for you. I'm Representative Jamila Taylor out of the 30th District, recently elected. And I would say my priority in terms of the 30th District is South King County, so Federal Way, a little bit of Pierce County. And Senator Wilson will give the rest of our district as we normally do. I have been focused on the response to the Blake decision, which decriminalized controlled possession of controlled substance. And I work in partnership with Rep. Davis, who is the queen of behavioral health from the Blake angle. And of course, a lot of other legislators who are on this call today. And so I'm really fascinated around how we build out the support systems in addition to just treatment. And so this is an amazing evening, and thank you so much for allowing me to participate.
Senator Claire Wilson, I have the esteemed pleasure of having Rep. Taylor as my colleague in the 30th Legislative District, which also includes unincorporated Auburn, Des Moines, Algona Pacific, and a little bit of Milton. And I had a wonderful group of individuals from our community to talk with early, and really focused on helping professions. And again, we know just right now, the stress that individuals are under, and then when you add the work that you do to support others, how much that adds to financial challenges, anxiety, housing issues, mental health issues, and all of those things. We talked about working with Judge Larson in our own community and work that he's currently doing in this arena. There was concern around youth suicide. So lots of conversation around that. And I will say, Rep. Taylor, Blake, as well as police reform was part of our conversation, again, about solutions and focus and support for constituents in the 30th and the state of Washington. Happy to be here tonight, and thanks so much for sharing.
District 32, I know we have a few of you here tonight. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Ryu, State Representative from the 32nd LD, which includes Shoreline, as well as the northwest corner of Seattle, and then the southwest corner of Snohomish County. I actually am very happy to be the senior member of the two-person team that we have in the House, with Representative Lauren Davis taking a huge lead within the House, along with many other colleagues, in making sure that we do not only work on the policy side, but also on the funding side. Because of the very capable Representative Davis's work, I am able to concentrate on what I like to work on, which includes, of course, housing, but also things such as broadband and telecom and other, I guess, supply side of things such as community and economic development. So the one issue that I do appreciate our caucus being able to address is culturally appropriate care. And so I really look forward to my seatmate, as well as the rest of our very fine group of legislators, King County legislators, who are all pulling together in the same direction. And so I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I am the junior member of the delegation, Lauren Davis, and very honored to serve with Rep. Rio. Just want to thank everybody so much for being here tonight. I know many of you in the audience, and you guys are my friends and my colleagues and my teachers and my mentors. It's always wonderful to come to this event. This is my 9th Behavioral Health Legislative Forum. I attended when I knew absolutely no one and had no qualification to speak or do anything in behavioral health whatsoever, and was very intimidated by all the lawmakers on the stage. And yet life happened and here we are. But just grateful to share the space with you tonight. Very grateful to the individuals in recovery for sharing your stories. The one thing that I'll mention in my 1 minute actually is the legislature has done a lot in behavioral health, especially the last several years. And what I really want to ask and actually beg of all of you tonight is to help us with the implementation. Yes, this whole point of this forum is about forward looking, but man, we did some big stuff this last session. The Blake state's response to the Blake decision, the 98 bill, and a myriad of other things. And there's more to come, but there were 74 provisos for the Healthcare Authority around behavioral health, which is an unprecedented number. And if we want those things to meet their mark, we need all of you. We need people in recovery. We need families. We need frontline providers. Please don't take your eye off the ball. And we legislators need to make sure that we also stay equally focused on implementation as much as looking forward to the next session. So please reach out anytime if you've got any ideas around anything remotely related to behavioral health. Thank you.
34. Representative.
Representative Eileen Cody from the 34th District, which is West Seattle, Vashon, and Burien. And I'm also the chair of the House Healthcare Committee, which is where most of the behavioral health stuff comes through in the House. And I would say that what we're really, at least what I've been focusing on with several others in the House this interim has been to work on our workforce. So we've heard loud and clear about the need to increase rates for especially in behavioral health to be able to retain workforce, but it's not just the retention. We got to get cranking out more providers. So we are working on that and really focused on trying to figure out what we can do to attract people into behavioral health and just to healthcare workforce in general.
Thank you. All right, District 36. I know we have someone from 36.
Hi, I'm Reuven Carlyle, Senator from 36, which is Northwest Seattle. Just a real pleasure to be here once again. And we had a fabulous conversation in our earlier breakout room where a lot of practitioners were talking about the implications of housing first. It was just a really substantive and thoughtful conversation. I really appreciated that. I always enjoy it. And I just really appreciate being with everyone again this year, and just appreciate the magnitude of the transition in the last couple of years into an acknowledgement of the magnitude of the importance of behavioral health. And no one questions the need for integration with our broader healthcare system now. And that's been a fabulous, fabulous systems improvement. And I really appreciate everyone sharing their story.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is Representative Raymond from the 36th District. I want to echo what my senator just said about the conversations we had in our breakout group about housing, health care through housing, as we've heard from King County, is so important. I also just appreciate the conversation we had in our breakout about complex trauma, complex PTSD, and developmental trauma, which was a term I actually had not heard before, but it was clearly a word to describe what I have personally experienced and the issues that I've worked on in the legislature as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and someone working with kids in care in the dependency system who've also experienced similar traumas. So I was grateful for the connections and work that I hope to pick up again in the future. This is hard work, as we all know. We all have secondary trauma from doing work in behavioral health, and so I appreciate all of you. I will say my focus in the next year, as a relatively new member of the Appropriations Committee, will continue to partner with Representative Sen in her capacity as chairing the Children, Youth, and Families Committee, Representatives Davis, Representative Callan with their work on the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Work Group to implement what they see as the priorities. And then as the chair of the House Finance Committee, continuing to work to improve our state's tax structure so that we have a sustainable tax structure to provide the funding we need for these key services for our community. So thank you all for sharing your stories and having us tonight.
Thank you. All right, District 41.
Good evening, I'm Tana Sen, the senior member from the 41st Legislative District, and proud to chair the Children, Youth, and Families Committee in the House. And it is apropos that this legislative session, without a doubt, the two biggest issues in our committee will be around children's mental health and adolescent services. And was proud to be able to really emphasize adolescent services as we've been discussing the Blake decision, to make sure that our youth are not overlooked because they do have special and distinct needs from adults when it comes to mental health and when it comes to substance abuse and it comes to trauma. And so really putting the exclamation point on helping youth and going upstream in trying to prevent and reduce as much trauma as we can. So I will continue to focus on the prevention, and again, thrilled to work with all of my colleagues and all of you on really addressing especially children's mental health, but mental health access overall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the junior legislators on the 41st Legislative District, and I'm happy to be in this space with you. Very much appreciative of the story shared in the earlier sessions, and very informative. I serve on housing, human services, and veterans. I also serve on finance. Last sessions, we passed a working family tax exemption. This sessions, I am working on ensuring the implementation of that work with fidelity, so that those who are hardworking individuals, hardworking families in our state get the tax exemption they needed for their well-being. Like many of my colleagues who have shared, the top priority for our session certainly is going to be anchored around mental and behavioral health support and services, definitely around workforce development to ensure that the services will be provided by highly qualified individuals. And I think I heard briefly from Representative Reuse speak specifically around the cultural and linguistic sensitivity and relevancy. I am working, and I'm hoping if anybody who has a personal direction, a direct line to Governor Inslee, I would very much like to see that he included in the budget the looking at ensuring, well, as a refugee myself and still be the first refugee elected to serve in Washington State Legislature, I'm looking at our state to learn from what we have learned before. This is not new. A lot of the refugees and immigrants who come into our country, into our state, are talented. They are talented, and they have exactly that, the cultural and the linguistic knowledge. And if they have served in the capacity in their home country, why can't we, making sure that they too get to contribute to their second home, be an active member in our community? And that is what I'd like to see us moving forward as we welcome more of our Afghan refugee into our county. Thank you.
Thank you. And District 43.
Hi, everyone. I'll start because I know my seatmate would love for me to start. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Macri, State Representative from the 43rd Legislative District, and I'm so sorry I can't see folks' faces, but it's wonderful to see all the names, many, many familiar names, and some unfamiliar names with some 43rd District next to them. So it's really great to be here. I want to just first acknowledge what we've all been through collectively over the last 2 years. This has been a very difficult time for all of us. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that and give ourselves grace around that. I'm just really grateful for everyone continuing to show up to advocate for behavioral health services. We have taken tremendous strides, but we still have a really long way to go, and the pandemic has thrown definitely new challenges at us. I'm so grateful to all the folks who spoke and shared your deeply personal experiences and stories. They are really helpful to us. They keep us grounded in the importance and urgency of what we as policymakers need to do. They help to break down the stigma. If there is a silver lining in the pandemic, it is that more and more people are willing to acknowledge the challenges around behavioral health that many of us have gone through and are going through. So thank you for sharing your own stories. We have a lot of work to do in this 22 legislative session. A lot of my colleagues have talked about a lot of the priorities. One of the roles that I play is a vice chair on the appropriations committee, so working on our operating budget. So looking at workforce issues is very important. It's great to see so many people I know who work in behavioral health who are here today. Thank you for all the work you're doing. We know we need to help make sure that you can sustain yourself in this work, and we will be working on that. And thank you, King County, for your very comprehensive legislative priority list. Thank you for putting permanent supportive housing on that list. Thank you to those of you who shared your own struggles with housing, Jared and Ubah and others. Really appreciate that. We will continue to work on housing for people who have gone through behavioral health challenges. It remains a priority for us. There's lots of other stuff we're working on, but I'll leave it at that. I know I've exceeded my 1 minute, and I'll turn it over to my seatmate.
Thanks, Nicole. Great job. In fact, many things that you just said, I totally agree with, obviously. In fact, all of the things you said. I do want to recognize Claudia Balducci and Jeannie Cole-Wells for being here from the King County Council. Great to see you again. Thanks for all your great work. We are making progress, significant progress in terms of behavioral health. It's actually very exciting. And also because of all the folks here tonight on the legislative forum, I mean, every single one of the legislators have contributed to the effort in terms of behavioral health in a very direct way. Let me give you a few examples. We do want to say thank you for King County for finally implementing the 110 sales tax that created $400 million to buy housing. And that's great. Thanks, Claudia. Thanks, Jeannie. And thanks to everybody else. We have to carry that out and make sure it works because we want to do more. And I'll get to that in just a second. But the money is there not just for capital costs, but some money for services through the mental health funding that Kelli had talked about. The second highlight is we just did a groundbreaking of the University of Washington Behavioral Health Teaching Hospital, which is being built as we speak out at Northwest Hospital in North Seattle. That'll really significantly add to the capacity for behavioral health workforce as well as providing 150 beds to care for people, not just with mental health issues, but also with substance use disorder concerns. And we really are proud about that. The legislature put in $240 million to actually build the thing. I do have to mention Senator David Frock, who really helped on the capital budget for that. Thanks, David. He's not here tonight, but send him good wishes. A third one is that I started a program called Home and Hope a few years ago, and we are now acquiring and developing over 20 major sites in King County for affordable housing, including supportive housing and other community services, early learning, childcare, community health clinics, you name it. So please work with us to how we can work together and build partnerships to do even more in the future, because we'll need that extra capacity. Next two steps. I totally agree with what everybody said about behavioral health workforce. I don't have to go into it in detail because you got so many advocates. It's just great, but we got to follow through, as Lauren Davis said, and actually implement what we're doing. The big one, though, I want to mention at the end here is that we have a concerted effort to advance the whole concept of health and homes. That is similar to health and housing that King County has named their particular program. But we are proposing legislation, the Apple Health and Homes Act of 2022, and it'll be pushing two particular projects, or two particular efforts rather. One is $500 million in federal ARPA funds to buy or construct supportive housing for those who need the housing, who are chronically homeless as a result of behavioral health concerns, mental illness, substance use disorder. This is a big step forward, but it's only one-time money, so we got to go beyond that on an ongoing basis. And so we're proposing a prescription for a home in state law to connect the people who are chronically homeless because of their behavioral health conditions to actually make the connection to the home. I mean, we cover all sorts of expenses in this state for healthcare, rightfully so. We have 1.8 million people in the state of Washington on Apple Health. What we're talking about is 6,000 to 12,000 people statewide that also need a home in addition to the healthcare. So please work together with us on this. It's extremely important. It would be the first in the nation to actually do it. It's not easy. We have to phase it in, but I'm extremely grateful to Nicole and many others involved in the legislature who are helping push this through. So anyway, I'm really excited. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now let's go to, I see we have some representatives from the 46th.
Rep Valdez, do you want to go?
Go ahead, Jerry, you're the senior member.
Oh, the white hair gets me something. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to the people who joined in the conversation from 5:30 to 6:30, and let's stay in touch. And not only thank you for the people who share their personal stories every year, that it's been so well expressed how important they are to policymakers, but thank you to all the fellow elected officials and all the people in our behavioral health and housing agencies who are doing such great work. It's incredible to me to listen to what so many of my colleagues are doing. Thank you all.
And good evening, everyone. Javier Valdez from the 46. Again, it's an honor to be here. I'm here every year, and so it's just a great event. I had a great conversation with about 10 constituents from the 46th district. 3 highlights, and they've actually all been covered. We definitely had a great discussion about the need to increase our rates, as so many of our providers out there are having to, think about or have left the profession because we're just not keeping up, being able to pay them on an equitable basis. The second point, which Representative Chopp spoke about, was again our brand new facility right here in the 46 at Northwest Hospital. We're certainly excited about what's going to be happening there, and of course, I also gave a shout out to Senator Frock from our own 46 for all his work to make that happen. And in terms, I think of our last third point, which really, of course, it's been discussed already. It's about housing. Sure, we can provide temporary housing or hotel housing or transitional housing, but much more that we need to do for our most vulnerable populations, getting into real permanent housing. That's one of the best solutions that we can provide. And in terms of my highest priority, of my priorities this year in the legislative session, it's the same one I've had for the last 4 years, which is a bill on gun safety, which is the bill that would limit the amount of high capacity magazines that an individual can purchase and possess. So I'm hopeful this year in 2021, we can finally get that across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go back to a few districts that I think we did not have you on the line and when we started. So I want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to share your comments. So let's go back to the first district, Representative Ubah.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I have to admit that I was not able to attend the entire thing, even though I really think it's one of the best events that we have all year of these type. I was taking care of my own mental health and going to my yoga class, which, you know, we all have to have those things that get us through and keep us on an even keel. So I was practicing what we all need to be doing for ourselves to get through. So it is always, to me, an honor to hear the stories that people bring. And I apologize that I missed it this time. But the second thing is to be standing arm in arm with these amazing colleagues who care so deeply and are, you know, such warriors and come up with such great ideas. My committee areas don't necessarily touch a lot onto these issues. However, you know, I can always be depended on to put people first and behavioral health as well as our physical health. So it's always just an educational opportunity. I never get to be in the same room with these people anymore because of COVID. And so it's nice to hear what everybody is working on, and you can bet I will be right there along with you. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, District 5, Representative Ramos.
Thank you very much. Bill Ramos here. And just thank you all very much for everybody being here, doing the work. I can't thank you enough. Everybody that's involved is keeping this going. Workforce is an issue. So my big concern is keeping the workforce we have right now healthy and strong, taking care of yourself. So you're here as we're trying to hopefully get you reinforcements, but they take a while. You know, there's a little bit involved there. And so I'm hoping to speed those things up. The things that are important to me, the peer-to-peer certification, that we can get more of those in, because we can get those folks ready faster and they can come and help. And the big thing they will also help bring to us is the cultural relevancy, because they're coming from the world of the experience, and that will help bring those faster. So hopefully we'll work in that arena mostly a lot to get things going as quickly as possible as we work to solve this in the long term. And just thank you so much for keeping everyone going, and take care of yourself as you serve the people. Thank you.
Thank you. And District 11, Senator Hasagawa.
Hi, thank you. I was not assigned to the 11th district, I guess, so I'm sorry about that, but we caught a lot of, I'm trying to find my notes that I took from this thing. I just clicked off of it when I was shifting pages, but I heard a lot of issues that were raised from response times and how there's a crisis in DCR workload and the number of DCRs that they even have, and how the need for, there's funding need for increasing workforce there. And I know that Representative Tai suggested, and it was also raised in our work group, that you know, there's immigrants who are trained to do this kind of work, but they're not allowed to become certified to do that. So there's work that we can be doing there. I think it's important, though, that as we look at our responses to the crisis, we have to keep in mind the root causes and some of the fundamental things that lead to behavioral health crisis in individuals. You know, the COVID impacts has put a lot of stressors on individuals and families. And the disparities in how those impact communities of color have to be recognized. So there was a big conversation in our group about cultural competency and responses to these crises. We also heard that there's a big need for funding increases. So at this point, I usually try to make the pitch that we recognize that there's a funding crisis to not just this behavioral health issues, but to most of the social safety nets issues that we as a responsibility in a humane society should be funding. So in return for consideration for those increases in funding to the necessary levels, I would ask of you all to really support what Representative Frame has been leading the charge on, which is an evaluation of reforming our revenue structure so that we can actually have adequate revenues to fund all of our social services. So we actually need a comprehensive progressive revenue structure in our state, and Representative Frame has been leading that charge. And I hope that you put that on your legislative agenda, because your voices will add a lot of power to the push to get that done. And that's fundamental to our improving all of our social safety net systems, including mental and behavioral health. Thanks for that time.
Thank you. And before I move to comments from our King County Council members, I believe Representative Eslick would like to say something again.
Thank you. Yes, I am in the 39th, not the 34th, as it was on the front page of the website. So I think I got kind of lost. I only have 107 people in King County in my district, 39. My district is East Snohomish County and East Skagit County. So I had no one in my group. And so I joined the group that had no legislator. And I was very pleased to do that, because hearing everything that they had to say was everything that I'd been hearing all summer long in our work group. I'm very fortunate to be in the children family work group, but also the subgroup of the YAC, that's the youth folks, with, and very honored to be able to work with Rep. Callan and Rep. Davis and Rep. Sen, and of course, before it was Rep. Frame. I am, what I'm really hoping to get accomplished this year is that we can, the budget include the full-time position that with the healthcare authority, so that they can educate the providers and our not only our providers, but our families about behavioral health and our new laws. That we're really great at making new laws, but we are not so good about implementing, as we have been working really hard in finding those loopholes and those areas that we need to work on. So by, I think, was it Rep. Davis that said she's recruiting all of you to help if you're involved in a mental health bill, to make sure that you follow it, not just the day that we implement it, but forever, because they are the most important. It doesn't work if we don't. So I'm thrilled to be here. It's been my pleasure. It's my first time in the King County, and looks like could be my last, because I have been redistricted out of King County. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for being here tonight. I want to turn, we have a few King County Council members. Thank you for joining us as well, and see if you would like to make any comments. Let's go ahead and start with Councilmember Cole-Wells. There she is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here today. I represent District 4, which is all within the city of Seattle, mainly the northwest part. And I'd like to recognize Councilmember Claudia Balducci, who I'm hoping will be speaking. She's been an outstanding chair of the council during very difficult times with the pandemic for the past 2 years. Of course, we have no session coming up as we work year round, but I thought there might be a few items to cover that would be of interest to you. We just completed our 13th and last budget over these 2 COVID years. 8 of them were COVID budgets, and we're looking at our 9th COVID budget with remaining CARES Act and ARPA funds in March. But by far, and I think really relevant to everybody here, one of the most gratifying parts of our mid-biennial budget that was just approved by the council a couple of weeks ago was the restoration of the reductions made last year to the MID program, Mental Illness Drug Dependency Program. And we even added some expansions, which were made possible by improvements to the MID sales tax collections forecast. We also included some additional funding for fentanyl prevention and treatment. And I'm really pleased that we're now recovering to some extent from the recession. The Health Through Housing program was mentioned earlier, and it's really taking off. Thank you very much to our legislators for granting us the taxing authority. But today we approved the implementation plan. It was approved unanimously by the King County Council, and we'll be providing significant differences in providing permanent supportive safe housing for chronically unhoused with behavioral health needs. Tomorrow in the Budget Fiscal Management Committee, which I chair, we'll likely be taking action on agreement with the City of Seattle for the county to acquire City Hall Park next to the county courthouse, which was closed by the city in late summer. It's had quite a history. We will continue to be working with community partners such as DESC and the Defenders Association with the Just Cares program and others. We also implemented a new restorative justice program, the Community Diversion Program, to divert eligible individuals facing their first low-level property or drug felony to a community-based, culturally competent program in lieu of prosecution. And in this most current budget, as I mentioned, we also added a program supervisor and clinician to address the growing caseload in the King County Regional Mental Health Court, the King County Veterans Court, and the City of Seattle Mental Health Court and Veterans Court. So we're doing a lot. We're going to have a recess the last 2 weeks of December, and then we'll be right back on the job the first week of January. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Councilmember Balducci.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting us. 2 of these things are not like the others. Councilmember Colwell's and I represent King County. She represents parts of Seattle, and I represent parts of East King County, Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, Mercer Island, some other places. And she did a very good job at describing some of our implementation work. So the state proposes, the locals dispose. So when you come up with great ideas and funding options, it's on us and many times at the local level to make those things happen. And I'm also really proud of our Health Through Housing program that several people have already talked about. So I'll turn and say just a word about what I am hearing at the local level is sort of the biggest crying need that's getting in the way of some of our work for people who are in crisis and people who need behavioral and mental health services. And we are all putting a lot of our efforts into dealing with homelessness in King County and in the rest of the state. It is an absolute huge challenge that we're all facing, and people are outside, they're suffering. We have an unfortunately very high level of deaths outside this year. And one of the things that we hear is that even if we've started up a new regional homelessness governance authority where the cities and the county are collaborating together, but we hear that even if we send out a lot of peer navigators, even if we send out social workers, even if we can get our arms around the challenges of making law enforcement responses more therapeutic, when people are in crisis and we go out and intervene with them, there's nowhere to send them. There's no, the facilities are lacking, and even if we had the facilities, the staffing is lacking. And so I just want to take this moment that I have to encourage all the work, the great work I've been hearing about from our state partners here tonight, to try to find a way to help build the workforce, support the workforce in mental and behavioral health in ways that enable them to stay doing this work that's very, very difficult and very, requires a lot of staying power and also, sort of better pay and benefits, let's just say it. So I really support that work. And we also have to work together to find places, facilities and buildings where people can do that work. So we have a place for people to go. So much more to talk about, but you've been listening to us for a real long time. So I'm going to stop. And thank you again for inviting me and Jeannie and the rest of the King County Council to be a participant in this great event each year. It's really very inspirational, and it's nice to feel that we have a team that we're working on this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I want to make sure that we haven't overlooked or missed any legislators or council members. So if we did not give you an opportunity to speak, please let us know. Hoping I caught everybody. Okay, thank you. So before we conclude, we're almost done for the evening. I know everybody's been part of this process for a little while now, so I appreciate everybody hanging in there. But before we conclude, I'd really like to take a moment to reflect on the importance and significance of today, December 7th. 80 years ago today, in 1941, Japan's Imperial Navy attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii. And this air raid killed over 2,400 servicemen and destroyed and damaged 19 US Navy ships. I know many of you are aware of this terrible attack against our country, but I wanted to make sure that you're aware of some injustices that followed. Following this attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan, people of Japanese descendants on the West Coast, many of them US citizens, were deemed a threat to the United States simply due to their Japanese ancestry. Over 112,000 were rounded up and incarcerated in internment camps for over 4 years. My own mother and father, both born in the United States, were 4 years old when they were sent to Minidoka, Idaho, and Poston, Arizona internment camps. They were 8 years old when released. My grandparents lost most of their personal belongings, their homes, and their successful businesses here in Seattle. 1,862 Japanese died while in camp. This forced relocation and internment is just one of several racial injustices in America's history. So we must continue to educate everyone on the hate and discrimination of our past, as well as raise awareness of what is still happening today. So I ask each of you to do your part to ensure equity and social justice for everyone. What will you do starting today? And that concludes our program tonight. I really want to thank our legislators and our members for being here. Thank you for your time, your words, and your support. And before we sign off, I just really quickly want to thank not only those elected officials here today, your legislative staff, our sponsoring organizations, everyone that is in mental health and substance use recovery in our communities, all of our behavioral health providers, our health and human service partners, our community members that have joined us tonight and are there every day in our communities. And a special thank you to Amanda Flatley, who is our Behavioral Health and Recovery Division staff, who worked many hours developing, organizing, and pulling off this event tonight. She's worked many hours over the past several months. We appreciate everyone's time and effort to be able to have tonight and hear from all of you and have you join us. So thank you again for being here for our Behavioral Health Legislative Forum in 2021. Truly hope that next year we will be in person again and be able to see all of you in person and connect and have those personal connections. That concludes our program. Thank you all. Have a good night.